This is just to recap the second part of our session on introducing visualizations. So I'm going to open up the two files that I shared with you earlier. So it was the lady in the green jumper and the Crackle Memphis artwork. Okay, so it's following roughly the same technique as we did before, but it's just slightly more complicated because we've got several different panels of this jumper that we wish to apply pattern to, and a slightly trickier selection to make in the first place. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is just ensure my resolutions are at 300, which in this case I think they already are. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to start by making a selection of this green jumper. Now, the object selection tool didn't work so well here, so one of the ways you could go about making a selection is using the magic wand and selecting by colour. So my magic wand tool, I can make a selection here. Okay, so I'm just making sure that this add to selection is chosen, and I'm just kind of going in with my magic wand tool and just adding areas to the selection. Okay, now you can see I need to clean it up a bit, but that's no problem. We can refine our selection, but that's not a bad start. Okay, so now I need to refine it, so I'm going to switch to my lasso tool and choose subtract from selection, zoom in. Okay, and I'm going to subtract all this here, which is unnecessary. Okay, we don't want these bits. We want to add in this bit of the sleeve that's kind of been missed. Okay, that's still part of the jumper. Okay, so you want to refine this. Okay, so that's something I would advise you spend, sorry, my computer's not behaving. This is something I would advise you spend lots of time on, making sure your selection is really, really accurate. Okay, the longer that you spend on this bit, the more convincing and kind of easier the result will be. Okay, so it's pretty good now. You might choose to carry on a bit longer than I'm going to, but I'm just going to recap how we save this selection, okay? Oops. Okay, so if I want to save a selection for use in future, I come up to Select, Save Selection, and Jumper New, I'll put there. Okay, now if you save this as a .psd Photoshop file, you will be able to open this up again, come to Select, Load Selection, and where it says Channel you can choose Jumper New, which is the one we've just created, and press OK. And then we've just loaded the selection again. I'm going to deselect this, and I'm actually going to come back to Select and Load Selection and choose Jumpery, which is the first selection that I made in advance of our session together to kind of speed up time a little bit. I'm actually just going to quickly refine it a little bit more, get rid of that bit of the bag. Okay, so now that we're happy, I'm supposed to add that, I can put this jumper on a layer of its own, following the same method as we did previously. So right click, layer via copy. Now, because this jumper is made up of a body section and two sleeves, you may wish to pop this sleeve, for example, on its own separate layer. Now I'm going to do this quickly to make the video short, but you may want to, or you will definitely want to spend time making sure this is done accurately. Okay, so now I can go layer via cut, right click, layer via cut, And now if I make that invisible and that, you can kind of see if I put them back on, that jumper's on one layer and that sleeve's on its own layer. If I come back into this jumper layer, I can grab the other sleeve and pop it on its own layer in the same way. Now it's important when you're doing visualizations on garments like this, or dresses which have different panels, or if it's an interior space it might be separate surfaces. It's important that you consider how the pattern will fall across these different surfaces, which is why I've chosen in this case to kind of treat them like 3 different areas that will require a visualization being imposed on them. So now I'm at the point I can bring in my artwork, so switch to this and switch to my move tool. Then I can click and drag up towards this tab. I'm still dragging, hold and release. Okay, so it's quite big. I'm going to resize it. Okay, I'm just going to turn this on to make sure that this is covering my jumper layer. Okay, now because I've got 3 panels that I wish to visualize, I need 3 of these. So I'm duplicating, right click and duplicate, and I'm going to pop one of these artwork layers above each panel that I'm going to make a visualization for. So they're a pair, they're a pair, and they're a pair. And now I can go ahead and start the process just as I did before. Now I'm going to treat them like mini projects almost. So this one, let's start by making a clipping mask. So that panel there is clipped to the middle body section of the jumper. Okay, if I turn these 2 on, now if I move this one so that it covers that sleeve, maybe tilt it, now I can right click, create clipping mask, and see that little down arrow means it's clipping to the shape of that sleeve. Do the same here. I'm going to turn this, okay, and then right click, create clipping mask, and see that little down arrow, it's clipped to the layer that was beneath it. Okay, I'm just going to turn that background layer on again. Okay, now I can change my blend modes. So I've selected all the layers in one go, using holding the command as I click them, and press multiply. Okay, now I'm going to change the saturation of this layer sat beneath my artwork. So this is the right hand sleeve, the way that I'm looking at it. I come up to image, adjustments, hue saturation, and take the saturation down to nothing. Do the same for this one. So that's the left hand sleeve as we're looking at it. And the same for this one, which is the body section. Okay, and now I can come in and change the levels. So let's start from the top again. So the right hand sleeve, levels. Okay. This left hand sleeve. And the body section. Levels. Okay, hit OK, and that's not a bad job. So I can come up to File, Save As, Green Jumper .psd on the desktop. Okay, and then File, Save a Copy. Drop down JPEG on the desktop and save. Okay, so that's the kind of approach you'll want to consider taking when you're working with a dress, with panels, multiple surfaces, or multiple objects within the same image, okay? So you're kind of treating them like little mini visualizations, several mini visualizations within one overall Photoshop file. Okay?